Hello and welcome to Moonknighting. Moonknighting. I wish I could say the titles of these shows, Liz. In my defence, this is not a title that I made up. It is a title from our very good friend Ahmed Rafet, who came up with that for us, and he's also very kindly given us the logo for the show. So
which is details. Awesome.
Yes, it is awesome, and I really like the title. It's a nice punny title in keeping with the tradition that we like this. We've got details of how to contact Ahmed if you want to hire him for commissions. Please do, because he's a terrific artist. He does some fantastic kind of Batman and Moon Knight stuff, as well as anything really. He can turn his hand to anything. He's an amazing artist, and hopefully in one of the episodes we will get to talk to Ahmed. So just in short, I'm Paul. This is Liz. This is our Moon Knight reaction show. So this is us talking about the brand new MCU show, which I'm sure you've all watched by now. If you haven't, please maybe put us on pause or switch us off to a later time, because there will be spoilers throughout this show for the program, and we don't want to ruin anything for anybody. Liz, as much as I always love it, just being me and you on these pods, I felt that we needed a bit of help with this one. So to talk us through their take on Moon Knight and perhaps some of the show as well, please welcome Mr. Jed Mackay. Hi, Jed.
Hey, how's it going?
Jed, as I'm sure everyone knows, is the writer on the current run of Moon Knight, which has been going since sort of late last year. It's a fantastic run. The first volume is out now. That is Midnight Mission, with volume 2 coming in August. It's a terrific run.
Oh, thank you.
Probably one of the best for a while on Moon Knight. I mean, the Moon Knight runs are all very diverse and interesting and different. And Jed has a very distinct take. So we are going to talk to Jed about that. Jed, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you being here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Good. How's life there in the US? What part of the US are you based in?
I'm not based in any part of the US. I live in Canada.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's because when we were communicating, it was sort of on Eastern time. So I do apologize about that. How's life in Canada?
It's good. Yeah, it's not too bad. We moved out of the city into the country a couple months ago. So we're kind of readjusting to a new sort of pace of life. But,
okay,
I certainly can't complain. We've been pretty lucky. So, yeah, no, we're doing well.
Does that aid the writing being further out? Does it allow you more kind of headspace to kind of get into the stories and things?
Not really. I mean, since I went full time on the writing, it's it's just kind of the same thing. You sit at home, you write. It doesn't matter if you're in the city or if you're in the country. You're still sitting at home by yourself writing. So it's not it doesn't make much difference either way.
And are you a kind of regular hours type of writer? Do you sort of up at 6, start by 9, that sort of thing, or?
No, it's just kind of whenever, really. It would possibly be a good idea for my productivity to have a set schedule, but it's just not something I've developed. It's just kind of, I sit down and I work until I can't work anymore, and then I go do something else, and then I come back and sit down and work. And so it's just kind of catch as catch can, really. Right. And of course, depending on what the deadlines are. So,
I mean, you've got the regular monthly book, as well as I know you were working on the Doctor Strange event recently. So those must have been kind of fairly intense periods.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a point now where I've kind of reached my capacity as far as the amount of work I can get done in a month. Right. I'm writing 3 ongoing books plus working on a mini for the summer, so it is kind of a lot. Not more than I can handle, but I certainly wouldn't want to try to take on anything else. I don't think at this point. There's people out there doing 5 or 6 monthly books. I just don't understand how they can do it. But for me, I think working on 4 books at a time is kind of as far as I can go.
With Moon Knight, I mean, is that something where Marvel kind of come to you and say, look, we need to gear up for the show and therefore we need a Moon Knight book. Could you write that book? Or is it just happenstance that you happen to be pitching a Moon Knight book as they're gearing up for the show? I'm always curious about how those things kind of work in terms of the timeline of it all. I was wondering if you could shed some light.
So it would have been, I think, October before last. I got an email from Tom Brevoort, who I'd worked with before on Avengers Max Strike. And he said, we've got this Moon Knight TV show coming out. We're going to need a Moon Knight book out. And it had been a while since the last Moon Knight book. So, I think we're certainly well due it. And it's like, well, most of the time I know, like as an editor, Tom would say, most of the time I know what I want a book to look like. So, I reach out to people who I think can fulfill that vision. At this point in time, they hadn't really decided on what they wanted a Moon Knight book to look like. So Tom actually reached out to a bunch of different creators to see, what ideas they might have. So it was a bit of a, so it's not really competition formally, but the ball was thrown out to a bunch of different people to see who had the idea they thought would work best. So I was really excited about it because I like Moon Knight, and how often does the chance to write a Moon Knight book come around? Because he's, as I said, he hasn't had a book for a while, and then he goes through these long kind of like periods of dormancy as a character. So it was the opportunity I was really excited about. And so I put my thoughts together, went back and forth a couple times, and then they said, yeah, you can do your first issue, which is great because up until they said that, I didn't know I'd gotten the job. So I was like, I'm like, we're doing these revisions. I'm like, do I have the book? Do I not have the book? Are we still figuring it out? And they're like, yeah, go write the first issue. It's due in like 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, sure, okay, got it.
That's amazing. What sort of, when you go in and pitch, are you pitching with a whole year planned, or is it like, okay, I'd like to get through these first 6 and then see where I'm going? I mean, how does that work? Because it seems really kind of tightly plotted and wonderfully so.
No, thank you.
And certainly been a great sort of first 6. So
like most time of the pitch, or when you're pitching something, usually you're not allotted more than 5 or 6 issues at a go. Just because it's the vagaries of modern corporate comic book publishing. They're not going to keep making something that's not going to make them money. If something's not selling well, it's not going to survive. That said, so my initial pitch was for 5 issues because that's what I assumed it was going to be, or that's what I assumed the order was because that's kind of the standard. That said, there was a certain amount of confidence in Moon Knight going forward, so we had planned for 12 issues from the get-go. So those first 12 issues, like the first 6 issues were basically the pitch. So we had to get those in line and ready to go before we started the book, just so we knew where we were going, what was going to happen. And then the back half of that later got filled in. And then, I'm working on the next arc after issue 12 now, because it seems to continue to be pretty healthy sales-wise. So yeah, everything in comics is going to be plotted out pretty far in advance. So, issue 10 comes out next week. That was planned, I don't even know how long ago. It was written in November maybe.
Wow.
So it goes back pretty far.
And how long does it take sort of Alessandro to bring you in like the full inked pages? I mean, how long is the gap between you sending him the finished issue to?
I mean, a lot of it depends on how obnoxious the script is. There's some stuff I'm just like, oh wow, this is gonna be a real pain in the ass. And I'll put in a note like, if this is too much of a pain in the ass, let me know and we'll figure it out together and try to think of a better way to do this. But I mean, Alessandro is he's basically rises to every challenge put forward in it, and he does work pretty quickly. The actual timelines I couldn't tell you, but I mean, he's a machine. Like, he's working like clockwork. And he's had one break in 12 issues, which is something else.
Yeah, and that was back.
Just given the monthly nature of comic books.
And I am actually a bit behind on the current arc. Mm-hmm. So I've only just started reading that in the last few days. So issue 7 was his break. So it was quite a while back. He's been kind of,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So issue 7, Federico Sabatini came in, who also did Devil's Reign Moon Knight, the one shot from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
When did that come out? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So Federico stepped in, but other than that, Alessandra's just been cranking out pages, and I find it really interesting to see, especially young artists, grow when they work at that pace, because you're always drawing, and you're just like, moving forward in your style and your fundamentals and leaps and bounds. Mm-hmm. If you go from that like 1-page preview he did that was in that issue of Avengers for Moon Knight to what he's doing now, it's wildly different.
This is his first like big Marvel book, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. That's like when Tom told me that he was on the book, I was kind of surprised. I couldn't really find much of his work. So, he is like, this is a heck of a debut for him.
Yeah. You would never know. Like,
no, that's what I mean. Like he's showing the world what he's got. And, we're lucky to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great looking book.
When you look at the kind of excitement that gets kind of built up from the fact that the show's going to be coming or the show is now here, does that add a layer of pressure because suddenly the book becomes a flagship book, or was it because Tom had said to you, hey, there's going to be a show coming? Was that pressure always there, or is there no pressure? I mean,
I think like there's a certain amount of pressure, especially when Moon Knight was announced, because it kind of raised certainly my profile to a much higher level than it had been previously. I had to really go into Twitter and adjust some settings so that I could keep my peace of mind. When before, like I think I've gained like 3,000 followers in that interim of the last year or so, and then that really rapidly changes the way you interact with people on the internet, because when I only had 1,000 followers or something, I was doing books that only a very specific group of people cared about. You can kind of talk to people directly a little more, whereas that is kind of largely out the window, because Moon Knight is a character that has a following, and then you have the TV stuff on top of that. But he's also Moon Knight's also a character that is requires a certain amount of delicacy in how you handle the character, especially these intersectional identities and stuff. When you talk about religion, you're talking about mental health and things like that. So it wasn't so much pressure of there being a TV show or anything, because I didn't know anything about the show, and I don't know anything more about it than anybody else does. But I was pretty certain there would be little to no overlap between what we were doing in a comic book and what they're doing in a TV show. So I'm able to kind of treat it as its own thing, and only worry about what we're doing in a comic book.
Yeah, that must be good, not to have to kind of bend it towards this version that's perhaps appearing elsewhere in an entirely different medium.
And I've said it before, like I think their bandage suit is very cool. It's also a great way to get an artist to quit a comic book, having to draw that thing over and over again. So I think the current Moon Knight design is quite safe.
Yeah, it's a great design, and the book looks fantastic and reads excellently. Can I ask, like, with I feel that this version of Moon Knight that's in or Moon Knight where he is now and when he is now in your book is a lot healthier than perhaps previous versions. Do you agree with that? Is that a conscious choice, or is that something that just naturally bled out of the kind of ideas of where you wanted to take the book?
Yes and no. One of the sort of themes we're seeing as we're going forward is that Mark Spector is kind of desperate to perhaps portray himself in a better place than he actually is. And we'll see how that sort of shakes out further on down the line. However, at the same time, I thought it was really useful where he was after the events of the Age of Khonshu, which I thought was a great springboard for a new series for the character, because it really put him on the back foot in a way that was very public, and put him in a great position to kind of start and try something new, to start and try and find some sense of who he was without some of these staples from his life, such as Khonshu's not there. He's reinventing himself, and nobody likes him. He's kind of alienated himself from most of the other superpowered community, because he beat up the Avengers and took over the world. And there's something I kind of like about a superhero that none of the other superheroes like. In the same way with Black Cat, where Black Cat, Felicia, she's a crook, but everyone still likes her. Whereas Moon Knight is a hero, but everyone doesn't like him. There's just something about switching those around that I really enjoy.
It feels like a kind of almost affliction for the New York superheroes. No one likes Spider-Man, or no one's supposed to like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and things like that. How much do things like tying in with the Devil's Reign event, how much does that affect the rest of the book? Because I know, of course, it was an entirely separate issue and things like that. How much lead time do you get with those? Are you told when you accept the book that Chip's going to be doing this? So by the way,
no, the Devil's Reign Moon Knight thing kind of came about a little later in the process. Because basically I just got an email from Tom that said, "Hey, Moon Knight's getting his ass whipped. Devil's Reign #1." I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "But we're also trying to show this character in his new series being cool and tough. So you're going to do Devil's Reign. Well, would you like to do a Devil's Reign one shot where we can follow Moon Knight after these events and kind of like say, he's not just jobbing. He's also got his own cool thing going on." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I think it'd be a lot of fun because." It puts us in a position where we've got 2 Moon Knight issues out of the month. Similarly, when it comes to event tie-in stuff, I've always find it kind of an interesting position to be in, because you're tying into this larger event and you're ostensibly in the service of that. But ultimately what matters to me is my own book, be it, Black Cat in King in Black, or, Moon Knight in Devil's Reign. So you want to tell a story that ultimately people who are reading your book because they like this character will be satisfied and excited and be, something interesting for them, because ultimately that's why they're buying Moon Knight, because they want to see Moon Knight do stuff. It also gave us an interesting opportunity where, unfortunately, the kind of print scheduling and on sale dates didn't quite shake out, but where we were able to replace Moon Knight for an issue with Hunter's Moon, and get a look at how he does business, basically, taking Moon Knight's spot. So I thought it was a lot of fun. It worked out in a way that I was really pleased with, and ultimately I don't think that the kind of semi-jumbled order of things coming out really hurt anything too much, because it's not like there were like a lot of spoilers or anything like that.
Sure.
People are complaining, "Oh, well, that means it doesn't matter." I'm like, people in comics gotta stop worrying about things mattering. Like, it's just such like a nothing complaint, and it drives me crazy every time I hear it in any sort of context. Like, "Oh, this doesn't matter." Like, it's a story with a character that you like. Like, that's all that matters. It's fun to read.
And ultimately, it's how much it matters to you, right? I mean, the reader. Like, it's I think if the publisher's gone to the trouble of putting a good artist and a good writer on the book, you should at least give it your time. And
it's just a complaint that drives me crazy, because like I think of some of my favorite issues, and they're almost always comics that don't matter, quote unquote. Like one of my favorite one shots was that it's like a Batroc one shot that Kieran Gillen wrote some years ago when Bucky was taken over as Captain America. And I love it. Right. It's so good. Like, does it matter? No, not really. It's Batroc getting his ass kicked by Captain America yet again. But it's a great issue. And like, that's all that matters.
And there is something that kind of heads back to the comics of yore with that, because
sure.
predating the days of the sort of super serialized, almost, and respectfully for the trade storytelling.
Sure.
You know, you did just get a bunch of single issues, and you know, they were all kind of stories in and of themselves, and didn't need anything going on either side of it, really. And I mean, like I quite miss that.
When that's the thing, because those are the comics I grew up on. Like I grew up reading my dad's comics from the 70s. So, you know, in the 90s, I wasn't reading 90s comics, or not many of them, because, you know, my parents wouldn't buy them for me because we had boxes of comics at home from the 70s. So, like, read those. We've already paid for them. So, or, you know, 20 some years ago. So, you can read those. We're not going to bother spending $5 on, you know, whatever issues on the spinner at the pharmacy. You know, I would pick up a comic here or two of my own, like, you know, my prized possession for quite some time was that hologram cover or Spider Armor issue. It's great. It's so cool. And I was like, I'm reading as a kid, there's like 15 villains in it. I'm like, this is great value for money. The more villains are in this, the more, you know, the more further my dollar's gone. So yeah, it was great.
Just by the by, what are you reading now? What are you enjoying?
What am I reading right now? I've been reading some of the new X-Men stuff. Immortal X-Men by Kieran Gillen has been a revelation. I was really psyched with that. Similarly, X-Men Red, which I don't think is out yet, but I get the advanced PDFs.
Right.
So I read the first 2 issues of each, and I really enjoy them. Eternals has been great. It's a book that I kind of hadn't gotten into. I kind of like left it by the side. I'm like, I know I'm going to like this, but I also know it's not a casual pickup. Right. I had to like have the time to kind of devote to it. And it's so good. Like it's creating this like really exciting mythology as if it was always there, you know, so naturally and so in such an interesting fashion. And it's, you know, it's illustrating a totally different portion of the Marvel universe. And it's not like something that's kind of like slapped together and, you know, you can't figure it out. Like it all makes sense. It's really great. Yeah. Other than that, I've been reading Lavender Jack on Webtoon, which is, I think, for my money, the best vertical comic around.
Right.
Yeah. And then, you know, just kind of bits and bobs here and there. I don't have, you know, series that I'm following regularly because it just kind of like dip in and out. But yeah.
What about with Moon Knight? What was your experience of Moon Knight, you know, before you started writing?
I think the first Moon Knight book I read was the 2014 one that Declan drew.
Mm-hmm. Yep, really great.
Like prior to that, my first exposure to Moon Knight would have been in the Marvel superhero trading cards. And you know, he's always a character that kind of stuck there because it's, you know, Moon Knight is a cool name and he had a cool look. But I think the 2014 run was the one that really grabbed me. And then, excuse me, as time went on, you kind of explore else in other directions. You know, Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood run was really great.
So good.
And I think there's something interesting in every Moon Knight run. You know, sometimes there's stuff I'm like, I'm not really interested in using this particular thing or using all of it. But I think you can always take something interesting from every run. And that's because it's a character who, you know, perhaps appropriately has had wildly different interpretations over the years. Where, you know, from the first run was, you know, very much sort of another run at the Shadow kind of figure.
Yeah.
Because people, you know, the lazy take is always, you know, Moon Knight is Marvel's Batman. And, you know, I see where people are coming from with that, but it's more accurate, I believe, to say Moon Knight is another take on the Shadow in the same way that Batman was, which may or may not be accurate. But I was very pleased with myself when I thought of that, so I'll roll with it.
And yeah, he is closer to kind of Lamont Cranston, and his history than he is to Bruce Wayne, you know. So
yeah, I mean the thing is like, an all-in-one character, he is Lamont Cranston, but he's also Shrevey, you know, he's also a cab driver, all in one person. So he is his own supporting. He basically takes the Shadow supporting cast and just has them all in one character.
And is there any sort of desire on your part, without, if you can, without giving spoilers, so you don't have to answer this, to use some of those sort of early supporting cast members like Duchamp or Marlene or any of those?
I can say that you may see some of them coming up in the near future. That said, I really did want to start fresh when we started this. So we've been gradually developing a new support cast for Moon Knight. We've got Reese and Soldier and Tigra and formerly Terry.
Yeah. No spoilers.
Yeah. And in Hunter's Moon, Dr. Batter, who is not really in a support network, but they certainly have an uneasy relationship.
Sure.
And so yeah, like I'm not going to dispense those characters entirely and say like, oh, no, we'll never see them again. But part of this run was trying to do something a little different. Try to not detach entirely from the past, but to not be beholden completely to it.
Yeah, I mean, they were good, interesting supporting cast members who have gone, much like Mark, have gone through these sort of shifts and personality changes depending on which creative team we're on. And it certainly would be lovely to see them at some stage, see where they're at now. But I think the supporting cast he's got is great. Like I really like Reese and
I like Reese a lot.
That they've been really kind of strong, distinct personalities. It's
and also the position where he begins, where it was kind of important for us starting out that he has been alienated from everybody that he knows pretty much, and that's why we see him where he is, starting from the bottom. Well, the bottom is a bit of a loaded term when it comes to Moon Knight, but starting fresh, trying something new, and that's why we see this kind of new supporting cast. Because it's not that Mark is making a break from his past, but his past has made a break with him, where no one wants to be associated with him anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting position to put him in, really. Because it's kind of at once sort of the loneliest we've kind of seen him, but at the same time, there are people around him, and it's just how much he wants to kind of connect. And
we're kind of balancing this guilt and hope kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it is a great balance. It's a really fascinating book, and the further you go into it, the more ideas you see coming through. So, congratulations on it. Did
thank you.
Like the kind of success of it take you by? So I mean, obviously you've got faith in your own creative abilities and Alessandro's creative abilities. Did the kind of, because it has been quite a huge success as I understand. I mean, there were a couple of issues I had trouble. I had to really kind of rush into the shop on Wednesday morning to get because
it's certainly had a sort of an outsized level of success than I had expected. Like I had hoped it would do well. When we did Black Cat, that was a book that did much better than anyone expected, because we thought we were going to be lucky to get past issue 5. We ended up with like 25 issues all told.
So like you did like 2 volumes of that, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean it was basically the same volume, just we relaunched with the new number 1 after the COVID hiatus.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyways, so coming from that, I was very hopeful we'd have a similar experience where, I think Moon Knight is a character that has much more clout than Black Cat, for instance. I think it's just a much easier sell for people, as well as the TV show coming out. I think probably helped a lot. But also the thing is too, like it's when you have these characters that don't appear as frequently as people would like, they tend to cultivate a fairly devoted fan base.
Right.
And we've really seen that with Moon Knight, and that there are people out there who are really psyched for Moon Knight. People who they know what it's like to wait for long droughts of years, or long droughts that last for years of no Moon Knight books coming out. So when a book does come out, and and it's something that they like, if the book came out it wasn't good, then that wouldn't help us very much either. But yeah, we see a lot of support in that respect, which is great. It's great to see.
Yeah, I think it was the Jeff Lemire run that preceded yours.
No, it was the Max Bemis and Jason Burrows.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Which actually that was really good.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there, and I thought the art was very cool. Lots of new characters, which is always great. But yeah, that was the last one. I think that ended. What was it, like 2015, 2016?
Something like that.
It's been a while.
It's certainly been a few years.
And just before we let you head off, because really appreciate giving you time, but I'm sure you're busy working on the next things. I presume you've seen at the very least the first episode of the show.
I have, yes.
What were your sort of feelings on that? Did you enjoy it?
I thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah, like I admired that they were like, we're just going to do a thing. It's not going to be the thing that people expect. And I think that was a really interesting way to go about it, because he's a fairly established character. There's been a lot that's changed about him over the years, but ultimately we expect things to work a certain way, and that's not what we expect when we hear that Stephen Grant is going to turn up. We certainly don't expect him to sound like the sort of Dickensian character, but it's. And not knowing what to expect is exciting. And it's fun. And I think they did a great job with those action set pieces where they hit the switching between the altars, and then we keep coming back and Stephen Grant. All of a sudden, he's driving an ice cream truck backwards, and there's cars on fire. So yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it was a really strong start, and I'll be interested to see where it goes from there.
Excellent. You hoping to see some elements of yours kind of turn up? Do you know if that's going to be happening, or?
I mean, like I said, I didn't say it here. I said it on the internet. I'm pretty sure they had written and at least partially filmed their scripts before I even got the job. So I don't think the timeline is going to shake out in that respect. If they do another season, who knows? But yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, you're certainly making your mark on the character. Definitely.
I hope so.
I mean, it's fantastic stuff, and I think it's in years to come. It's going to be one of the memorable, kind of really cool, great runs, and we've certainly both enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much.
Just finally, what are you working on now besides Moonknight? I know, like, are you going to tie in with Kieran and Jonathan's Judgment Day event? Is that something that's
no Judgment Day plans as of yet. These things could change, but ultimately you do have to kind of, when you're doing a book like this, you do have to kind of prioritize or focus on your own the health of the book first. So it's fun to tie in here and there, but if you're tying into everything, then you have a tough time telling a story.
Yeah.
It's different if it's like, Iron Man, there's always going to be an Iron Man book, or like Wolverine, there's always going to be a Wolverine book. People are just going to keep buying it regardless. But, with Moonknight, sales have been good, but we want to, try and keep people. And if every time an event rolls around, you're kind of getting derailed from your story, that can cause a lot of problems. So as it stands, we don't have any plans for Moonknighting. If that changes, if we have some ideas we want to work with, who knows? But currently we're sticking with our own thing at the moment.
Oh, good. I mean, again, thrilled to see it. Looking forward to certainly keeping an eye out for more of your work coming. Congratulations on Timeless, by the way, which I finally got the chance to read this morning and really enjoyed. Just a very kind of all-encompassing book, and it was great to...
And we got to get that beefy shirtless Kang on the first page. So I think that was a triumph from page 1.
It was a terrific read. Like I really loved it, and I'm really enjoying your stuff, sir. So thank you so much for the work you're putting out, and congrats to you, Alessandro, Rochelle, and Corey for the Moonknight book. It's a fantastic read.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you guys have been enjoying it, and thanks for supporting it.
Yeah,
No, and thank you for coming on and doing this.
No,
we're going to let you go because we're sure you're busy, and we've got a TV show to talk about. So
that'll do it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and
no
please
problem.
do come back and join us again.
Yeah, well, I'm always down to talk about comics, and you guys keep it down to a tight 35 minutes, so that's pretty easy to slot in at any time.
We're not too bad. We do our best. Thanks so much, Jed.
All right, guys.
Congrats and good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that was really lovely.
That was lovely. Yeah. I think he's still in the stream. He just needs to. I think, Jed, if you can hear me, you just. I think there's a little thing that allows you to exit the stream, just in the top corner there. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry. But yeah, that was great. I'm really thrilled that we managed to get Jed to come on for the first episode of Moonknighting.
Yeah. I mean, really interesting to hear his thoughts as somebody who, who really hadn't known anything about the TV series going in.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating that not everyone who's kind of involved with Moon Knight the comics knows what's going on with the TV show, because I think that's an expectation of a lot of fans is, you must know, you've got to know, right? You've got to know what's going on. So Jed, if you haven't still be watching, thank you very much for coming on and taking the time to talk to us. We really do appreciate it, and I'm sure it's been a big thrill for the audience. But what's going to be even more thrilling now is hearing Liz's opinion on the on
been
the
chomping at the bit.
Yeah. Well, Liz, we can't tell Jed to shut up just so you can talk about the show.
Wow.
So going in, very different show. Again, Marvel always confound expectations. I will say that for all their shows. But Liz, did it confound your expectations?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting listening to Jed speak, about all the different runs of Moon Knight and how wildly different they all are. And how, for example, his own take, is just completely different to all that have come before. And I feel like that really applies to this show.
Yes, definitely.
This is a very different take on Moon Knight. And fans of the character, will notice really big changes have been made. To maybe in the sort of most overt way in the Stephen Grant character.
Sure.
Totally different character to the one we know from the comics.
Not a millionaire.
No, yeah. So basically, like the Batman comparisons, a lot of the Batman comparisons are down to the Stephen Grant persona in the comics, which is the, sort of millionaire playboy persona of Moon Knight, of Mark Spector, really. Whereas here in this show, that is not who we get at all. Not even close.
I mean, starting out, the Stephen Grant character, I believe in Doug Mench's run, was so you have Mark Spector, who was a mercenary and went out and made millions being a mercenary, and then came back to America and became Stephen Grant, using his money, but then finances a kind of mercenary operation and goes off and becomes a cab driver called Jake Lockley to kind of get a view of what's going on the streets, and he's helped out by various characters, the ones that we mentioned in the interview there with Jed, and then of course there is Moon Knight. But in order to be Moon Knight, Stephen Grant has to be Mark Spector first. It's an interesting kind of.
It is. I mean, so obviously, this character, for readers of the character and those who don't know, the character first appeared in 1975 in Werewolf by Night, issue 32. As basically this sort of mercenary bounty hunter, going after, Jack Russell, who is the protagonist of that book, who is the werewolf. That's how he appears, and like the dialogue is very 70s, and it's but he had such a cool look, and I think fans just liked him. And so he kept getting brought back in things like issues of Spider-Man and Daredevil, and eventually got his own book. And I think Doug Munch is responsible for most of the early Moon Knight stuff as far as writing goes. But yeah, his seeming intention in the early issues was not to have a character with DID, dissociative identity disorder, but to just have this sort of man of many faces who took on different personas to accomplish certain things. So that eventually sort of evolved into a character who started becoming increasingly wrapped up in those different identities, to the point of confusion, and to the point of almost kind of being unable to tell who he was at a given time. And and that's just continued to evolve over the years, as people learn more about that that disorder. The different writers have really latched onto that as one of the most interesting aspects of the character.
Yeah, most notably for me, Bendis back in like 2012, was it?
2009, I think.
2009,
and I want to say 2009. I could be wrong though.
And Jeff Lemire in sort of more recently, sort of around 2015. I feel they're the ones that have used it kind of the most and gone at it most directly.
And those are two of my absolute favorite Moon Knight ones. I think they're both incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say here that although there are elements of entertainment and fun with the fact that Mark does not know, Stephen does not know who he is, I don't think they're using the DID as a for entertainment purposes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it isn't a cynical kind of, because there was that thing kind of post Fight Club where it was just like, it's a character with multiple as it was erroneously called at the time, multiple personality disorder, and therefore that excused all kind of plot twists and things. This is not that. And we should go to great pains to kind of mention that. I personally think their take is fascinating, and I although from the trailers I was just like, no freaking way with this accent, you know what I mean? Like that drove me mad in the trailers. I was just like, this has to be some kind of joke. But actually, when you see it play out, it makes total sense. And of course, isn't the thing at all. And again, just to remind everyone, we are going full spoiler on this. So, so some interesting stuff. Can we talk about the beginning of the show for a minute? Do you mind?
No, not at all. I mean, that opening sequence was like, it was quite a strong,
sinister as I think that's probably one of the creepiest openings I've ever seen in anything MCU.
I mean, like, my teeth were like on edge, like literally.
Once you realize
what he was gonna do,
what Harrow is doing, Now that kind of, I was looking into this last night. It is a type of flagellation, and it's meant to be a sort of, not sacrifice, but it's to show your worship for the god that you are worshipping. It's meant as a way, and the idea is that you're taking on the pain of other disciples to kind of show that you understand and that you're all one together, and which is quite an interesting thing, because Harrow very much feels like his own man, and yet one has to wonder if Harrow is suffering from some mental condition of his own, where he thinks he's talking to Amit, which is a whole thing. I mean, because what the show's asking you to believe right away is that the Egyptian gods are real.
Right.
And then for me, you have to begin to wonder how that plays out into things like the Eternals and those types of gods, and then the Titans like Thanos and things like that. Because in a world where we've encountered quote unquote real gods, are we then? Is that a blanket belief we then have to have in all gods?
Well, I mean, I think if we're talking about the characters, if we're talking about other MCU properties, I think they have already kind of, like even from like Thor onward, asked you just believe that the gods are real, and so my take was that yes, like he is sort of an avatar of Emmett in the way that Mark is an avatar of Khonshu.
Right.
You see the scales moving on his arm. You see that he has a power that was enough to, to devour the life force of this woman who we encounter later in the episode. And,
interesting with the kind of, with Harrow himself, Ethan Hawke has said that he kind of equated Harrow with David Koresh.
Yes.
From the Branch Dividend, which is a kind of interesting statement to make if you know what Koresh was reported to have been like. I say reported because obviously not been there, I don't know, but we've all seen the after effects of that. So
yeah, I mean, he is a cult leader,
Yeah, and then people. There is definitely a power at work, because if you look at the way that people are following him in the sort of village in the Alps or in Germany, wherever it was set, although they are speaking German, so one
the Alps, I think.
Yeah. And Steph and I had a lot of discussion about that on last night.
I don't think it was actually filmed in the Alps, so I don't think it was supposed to be set in the Alps.
No. But yeah, so some interesting stuff there, and he certainly already seemed to have picked up plenty of followers, and now seems to be extending his grasp out into the Western world, or the kind of English speaking world, if you like. For me, not to denigrate Oscar Isaacs and the different things that he's got to do, but only going by this first episode, Ethan Hawke walked away with the show. Like I just feel that was the some of the best acting I've seen on TV in a while. I really enjoyed his performance, even though it was done.
I thought they both did a fantastic job, but I honestly, yeah, Ethan Hawke, you could see how much fun he was having with it. He really, seemed to just be having the time of his life.
And the thing I like about him as an actor, I know I've had plenty of conversations with our friend Chris Thompson, who's a huge Ethan Hawke fan. I think there was one time when me and Chris were on our way somewhere, and me and Chris were just kind of
banging on about Ethan Hawke. I'm sure.
And I know Chris is a huge fan. Hi, Chris.
Oh yeah,
if
hi,
you're watching.
Chris.
So I think one of the traits of him as an actor is he manages to find a vulnerability in anything he's doing. And you kind of you see that sort of there's almost an innocence about his performance, if not his actions. And I really like that in Harrow.
Yeah, I do. And I think that Ethan Hawke has put a lot of thought into the character. Apparently that opening sequence was his idea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like right down to the Bob Dylan song,
fascinating.
Yeah. Which I thought was really, so cool. Cause it seems like he really has, kind of, and let me, kind of as an aside say, there's been all sorts of speculation about oh, well, who is he really? Because, this character, Arthur Harrow, who he is portraying, if we're to base that in the comics, the character only ever appeared in one issue.
Yeah,
it was
which
like
was
Moon Knight number 2.
Well, I'm not even sure. Was it a Moon Knight issue?
I think it was Moon Knight issue 2, but I could be wrong. I don't. But yeah, well, yeah, maybe it was one of the Incredible Hulk. The Hulk magazine
sure,
issues,
yeah, of course.
Or,
Actually,
the backup there, possibly.
I believe you're right. Yeah,
I thought it was Moon Knight issue 2, but I could be wrong. Either way, he only appeared in one issue, and he played. The character was very different to what we get here. It was like, just kind of like this mad scientist character who was like, just kind of a done-in-one villain. So a lot of people have been like, speculating, oh, did they just use the name? And, it's going to later be revealed that he's, Shadow Knight or, Black Spectre or one of the other Moon Knight villains. But, I would at this point put my money on the fact that, like, actually, no, they just used the name Harrow because it's a name, that exists, in Moon Knight continuity, but they've really invented their own villain for the show. That's what I'm guessing now.
And I think having him be one of those other characters might, in a way, cheapen his, like, do you know what I mean? Just a little bit, like, because it's a very distinct personality in character, and I really liked it, and that was the kind of big draw as I watched the episode.
I really liked it. I thought he was just so great, and I love Ethan Hawke too. He's such a fantastic actor, and it's really great to see him here. I mean, it's like the MCU; they just spoil you so much. They just get all the best actors.
They do. They have drawn in some very interesting actors, and I think it's interesting that they kind of purposely go after actors almost that have refuted. They're kind of just gone, no, I don't want to do that. Are you sure you don't want to do it? Because
right.
And it doesn't seem like a role he's kind of accepted for money. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's something, as you say, that he's thought about, that he's kind of gone in and this is what I'm doing, and there is something very distinct we can do. And I mean the structure of the show was interesting. The blackouts I really liked. I like the fact that it gives you action without actually really giving you action, because it cuts away at the vital moment, and it's interesting that all those moments end in blood. Right. You've always got Mark bloodied.
Right, and I mean, there was the one particular scene. Where he's holding the scarab that was quite, it was pretty bloody, I mean, and obviously you get that, you cut away from what a very, what must have been a very brutal fight. So it's kind of, it kind of keeps it Disney level, while still being, bloodier than most things we've seen.
They have had to apparently revise the age rating up for this show, which previously, they managed to keep shows fairly. Although I think there's some dark stuff in the other stuff, in the other shows. And in a way, it answers the complaint, because a lot of people, partly thanks to that run, which I think was, David Finch art. I can't remember who was writing. Jerome Opina, I think, at the time.
No, Jerome Opina doesn't write.
No, he's an artist, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting just confused with the amount of Moon Knight stuff that's kind of coming out.
Right, sure.
But the David Finch drawn issues where it literally rips someone's face off, and there is this thing of, Moon Knight is really edgy and really dark and really violent, and in a way, cutting away from that stuff and blacking out and jumping you forward a few minutes sidesteps that beautifully.
Yeah, that's what that was what I thought. It's like, okay, here's their kind of way to have their cake and eat it too. It's like,
and you're seeing the action from Steven's perspective,
right.
Not from Mark's, not from Moonlight's, but from Steven's, and that kind of is a. Sorry, I almost crunched my fingers between the chair and the table. As you can see, I'm not built for violence, but there was, it's a fascinating thing to do, and an interesting way to kind of approach it all. And we've already had, I hope I'm going to say her name right, kind of a sort of guest appearance from May Calloway, who we know is going to figure more as Layla throughout the show. We've certainly heard her voice. kind of starts to begin to clue Stephen in that he might not be Stephen. And did you know they just kind of revealed today, I believe, or late yesterday? So the human statue.
Oh yeah, obviously. I thought that was really obvious.
But do you know who that is? That's supposed to be.
Who the actor is? Well, yeah, I know it's supposed to be Crawley, but
yeah.
you know,
I thought
that was super obvious.
Oh, okay.
He looks just like
Sorry,
him, just
clever
painted
fox.
gold. Yeah, whatever.
Sorry, Marvel Encyclopedia.
Yeah, well. As I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's how they're doing Crawley. Neat, you know?
All right.
Well, because before the show actually had aired, like people, you know, thought Ethan Hawke's look was like actually kind of like Crawley, but as soon as you see, you know, the human statue, you know, like it looks exactly like him in the comics, except obviously painted gold and standing still.
And we do see Deshawn's name in the
phone,
call list, which I thought was a nice touch. So hopefully he's going to make an appearance in some form.
Yeah, or at least, fact, you know, like, yeah, they, you know, it's obviously like they're leaving you these little touchstones, whether or not they take them any further than that. It's like at least it's a wink and a nod.
And also there was the actor who sadly passed away, who is, I believe, French or French Canadian, and it's probably going to be him, I imagine. Who kind of passed away before the film was released. So obviously we'll be talking about that more when we get to it. But you know, our condolences to his family. He was a very talented actor and certainly someone I'd seen in a few things. They're like overall, I was completely bowled over by this. Like I just thought by far the strongest first episode, I think, for me.
I don't think it was for me. I liked it a lot, but I liked it a lot better the second time I watched it.
Yeah, I know.
You know, because I think some of the big changes I think were so jarring for me at first that I enjoyed it, but I don't know for me, you know, like that it would have been my like strongest first entry, you know, personally. I think it's really interesting, the changes they've made, and I actually really like them. You know, upon the second viewing, I was like, okay, I totally get this. I'm totally into it. But yeah, like just, you know, it was there were a lot of things that were really unexpected for me, you know, that I kind of had to wrap my head around, you know, namely, like, you know, yeah, like I said, the Stephen Grant persona is just so totally different. You know, I was like, oh, how is this gonna work if he's kind of this, like, you know, bumbling idiot kind of character, you know? And
even Khonshu as voiced by F.
Oh, I mean, Khonshu was amazing.
It's just like the idiots really in charge.
Yeah, I know. Which was hilarious. Like, I thought it was so great. Like, you know, I think that was just all the Khonshu stuff was awesome.
I'm interested to see, you know, where if they can kind of pinpoint where this personality has come from and why it's there, and is it a form of protection for Mark, you know, because if he's not Mark Spector, he can't know the things that Mark Spector knows. So if anyone wanted to kind of question him over, you know, where is this, where is that, why, you know, he literally, as we see with Stephen, he doesn't know. He's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know.
Right. I mean, there are some big unanswered questions, like about the functionality of it all. Like, okay, so like, you know, if he, you know, disappears for several days at a time, like, you know, how has he not been canned at work? You know, everybody's all of our London like sort of friends are like, you know, making cracks about what a flat in central London actually looks like if you work in a gift shop.
Sure. And but, also you know, the geography has been a big issue here, like the sort of Tottenham Court Road station entrance and the because he kind of, the place he looks like he's going into is the National Gallery, but inside it seems to be the British Museum.
Which is where all the Egyptology stuff is, you know, like, you know, which it would be Tottenham Court Road Station, you know, is probably the closest, but.
Can I surprise you with something?
Yeah,
or
go
maybe
on.
hopefully surprise you with something. Not a single bit of this was filmed in London or even
Oh
England.
wow. No.
So apparently,
None of those exteriors,
apparently, I mean, I imagine they did some second unit stuff to get the plates for it, but by all accounts, Oscar Isaac was asked in an interview with Radio 1's Ali Plum, and how many days did you spend filming in the UK? And he was like 0. I haven't been there for this film for this show. I believe a lot of it may have been done in Budapest and Hungary, and part of the reason for that is Hungary is very cheap to film in.
Yeah, I knew that the exterior of the museum was filmed elsewhere.
But it does kind of look
like when he's on the bus, and there was a scene where he's on the bus and it looks like he's going down the Strand.
Yeah. But where he gets off is completely different. And
right, yeah.
Okay, so I have a quick theory about this that I kind of want to share, and you can shoot me down, as I'm sure you will. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned in this show, I mean, early days, admittedly, but the one thing we haven't heard in any of the press about the show or in the show itself yet is the snap. We haven't heard anything about the snap. And given that we're now entering the multi-dimensional kind of version of the MCU, I wonder if Mark Spector is not part of the Earth that we've seen before. I wonder if we're kind of somewhere else. And he's kind of part of one of the alternate Earths, because there's no indication of the wider MCU, really. I think there's one kind of quasi cameo that people have talked about. But
which is what?
I can't remember now. It's gone. But I wonder if we're dealing with an alternate Earth.
Okay,
which
that's possible.
It would kind of explain some of the stuff. And certainly a world where people are willing to follow a cult leader who's kind of, hey, Egyptian gods, aren't they great?
Right.
Yeah. And I wonder if we're in a different Earth. That's just a theory.
It's a possibility. I would,
proved, just like all my theories, be proved completely incorrect.
It's not something that had occurred to me, but it's totally possible. I mean, what else is interesting about this is the first MCU show to introduce its lead character. All the ones we've had before have been
very true
established characters. So in that way, it's like, yeah, they could go there. They could be, taking him, from a totally different, universe. That could then later cross over with the mainstream MCU.
Sure.
So that's that's an interesting point. So yeah,
yeah, that's a great point, and something I hadn't considered. It's just like, yeah, it is the first one to kind of go, and this is the character, which I kind of think opens up interesting new directions they could go in with the shows, where they can actually use them and introduce characters rather than telling these in-between stories.
Right. I mean, it seems like going forward, that's actually kind of the order of business. Like, because obviously up next you've got, Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk and, and characters that we haven't met before,
And of course, there's the Werewolf by Night Halloween special coming towards the end of towards Halloween. Now, interesting thing about that, do you know who's directing that?
No.
Special. So, someone who's worked on Marvel films, but not in the capacity you might recognize him for, Michael Giacchino, who did the scores for Doctor Strange and the 3 Spider-Man movies, is
I
now
didn't realize
moving.
He directed it all.
I don't think he has done. Like, this is his first thing. But it has been announced that Michael Giacchino will be directing the Werewolf by Night special, which is an interesting move. And I wonder how many of the characters, will we get a more definitive Blade cameo in this? Will it be in that?
Will Moon Knight turn up?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of, given Moon Knight's origins, there kind of almost has to certainly be a Moon Knight appearance, right? But
yeah, one would hope.
We'll wait and see. Anything else you want to talk about with this episode?
I think that we kind of hit the major beats. Like, I really liked the performances. I thought Oscar Isaac was great. I thought Ethan Hawke was really just amazing. And it was a lot of fun. As I said, I think I enjoyed it even more on a rewatch, because I feel like I picked up a lot more from it. And it's just my expectations we're just so totally different to what I got. But actually I find that really satisfying ultimately, because it is in keeping with the character and in keeping with the fact that it seems like everybody whose hands it winds up in does their own completely different thing with it. And, so that actually, I feel like works for the spirit of the character. I thought Khonshu was great. I thought the costume looks great. I really loved the big chase scene. I thought that was so fun with the cupcake van. Made me laugh a lot, and it was just a really cool. I thought I really liked the way they kind of intercut between what's going on with Mark and what's going on with Steven. Personally, my hope would be that in the next episode we get an episode completely from the Mark perspective, since this one was completely from the Steven perspective. So I would be really interested to see that. And
can I say just something in deference to my earlier comments about how kind of annoying in the trailers I found this sort of Stephen Grant personality. I actually almost want Stephen to come back, because I actually quite like him. Having watched this, I actually kind of quite like him. And I think what makes the show is his fear about what's going on. And I think that has made the show more kind of interesting for me. Despite the fact that he does seem like comic relief, but I actually ended up quite liking him.
I expect he will continue to exist throughout the rest of the series.
It's interesting how you can have those turnabouts between kind of trailer and seeing the final product, and but yes, certainly one I'm going to be gripped to. So guys, that's it from us, I think. Thank you very much for watching. I hope anyone listening on the podcast enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jed. Just as an aside, we will hopefully be getting more guests on the show. We probably won't tell you who they are before. You'll have to tune into the show to find out. But in the lead up to the show each week, we're not going to kind of mention who they are, just because we want to retain an element of surprise. I do just want to say, if you want Moon Knight comics, go and grab those from the web store. There is some great stuff, including Jed Mackay's run. All 6 issues of that are available in one pack in the web store now. There's a special Moon Knight shop set up, and that's in the description. You'll be able to find our follows and things in there as well, and the main website itself, and also the reviews for. So far, we've got the Bendis Moon Knight and the Jed Mackay Moon Knight have been reviewed. There's going to be more. That's all in a thing called the List of Khonshu, and that's all on the website for you now, just to kind of introduce you to the various runs if you've not read any Moon Knight yet, or you just want to kind of get our opinion on what's happening. And of course, the latest issue of Moon Knight is available now, which I believe is issue 9. And as Jed mentioned in the interview, the Moon Knight Devil's Reign crossover, which I'm sure Liz has read and enjoyed. I know you're already kind of digging Devil's Reign, right? That's kind of something you're reading right now.
I'm enjoying, and I really am enjoying his Doctor Strange as well. Like,
yes, we didn't really get to talk about that in the interview. But,
well, maybe Multiverse Madness, when that comes out, maybe he'll come back and talk to us about that.
But yeah, great first issue for that, which we I believe we talked about on the podcast a couple of weeks back. So you may notice there was no podcast this week, no usual Crushing Comics. We've got a lot going on at the moment, and we had to kind of prep for this show. That hopefully will be back next week, but we will get back on a regular schedule. This is going out on a Saturday, but we will try and move this to a Friday. So Friday for the Moon Knight show, Saturday for the comic show. Sorry, it's just been a bit bumpy this week due to kind of availability of both of us really and the guests and things. So there may be a bit of jumping around the schedule, because if the guests aren't available on the Friday to record, I'm not going to say no to a guest. And no, you have to do it on this day. So just bear with us. And I hope you're enjoying the show and enjoying the stuff we do enough to kind of stick with us as we kind of jump around the schedule a bit. But I do want to thank you all for watching and listening. And of course, do check out the Patreon. Do check out the web stores, which will all be listed below, because that supports the website itself and allows us to keep going. Liz, I want to thank you for bringing your unique take on this episode. Hopefully, we'll be able to dive in next week and talk about some more stuff. But thank you as always for being on.
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So this has been Moonknighting with logos and titling by our good friend Ahmad Rafet. And again, his details will be below. Thanks for watching and listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.